founder made a decision that, hey, you know what? We're going to fix tires for free for everybody, regardless. Whether they bought them from us or not, most people are charging $20 to $30 to do a flat repair. We do 6 to 7 million flats a year free, so you can do the math. The thought was, when someone has a flat tire, you're having a bad day. No one planned for it. Instead of making someone's bad day even harder, why don't we make it a little brighter? Our mission as an organization is to make dreams come true. It's just a relentless effort of driving home that mission. But our founder was so passionate about making dreams come true for people.
And I think it's so important that businesses are willing to give first, not only make revenue. You're really thinking about the human experience and what it is that you're offering. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Experts of Experience. I'm your host, Lauren Wood. Today, I am joined by Tom Williams, Chief Experience Officer at Discount Tire. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I've been so excited to chat with you because in looking at your experience, you've been with Discount Tire since early on in your career. You were a part-time tire technician, from what I gather, and 38 years later, you're the Chief Experience Officer, which is an incredible journey. And I'd love to kick us off by hearing a little bit of your story and also how that experience of being there at such an early stage in your career and growing with the business has really empowered you to be the leader that you are today.
38 years ago, I got recruited by a friend of mine that was working part-time with the company and really fell in love with it. And so I joined on and worked my way through all positions within the organization. So I, started changing tires as a kid and fell in love with the company and decided to make it a career. And at that time, we had like 155 stores in the organization. And
wow. How many stores do you have now?
We have 1,200 stores.
A lot of growth.
So, yeah, a lot of growth over the years. So just made a career out of it. And when you did that, you started working out through different levels in the organization, from starting the backroom changing to starting to handle more of the consumer side and the sales side and all those other pieces. And you worked your way through until you get your own store, keys to your own store. And we promote from within the organization, which was great. Mm-hmm. And then, from there, I was able to expand to the next role, which we call an AVP role, which you have a group of stores. Did that, was able to navigate through that time, and then got a phone call to become the vice president of the Carolinas and ran both North and South Carolina and grew that, and then got a tap on the shoulder to become the senior vice president of marketing and advertising and multiple other things. And then took over the operations side for a while of an SVP and ops, and then got a tap to become the executive vice president and CXO for the organization. So it's really been a journey of this progression of holding about every seat there has been, other than, finance. I've never held something like that, or supply chain and so forth. But when it comes to the operational side of the business, I've had the pleasure and fortunate time to have pretty much every hat.
Yeah. So. And how has that experience of having so many of the hats within the business really enable you to see the business through a different lens? I mean, something that I always recommend to client-facing leaders or experienced leaders is to spend time at different levels of the organization and specifically with customers themselves. And so it's so interesting to see your experience having just naturally gotten to do that. How has it really impacted your way of working?
It's a great question, because we look at ourselves, what we call car builders and car drivers. And we look at our stores and our associates out there as car drivers. There's the one out there delivering on the experience that the car builders build. And we got to do it together. And I think by being able to be in all these different roles, it's truly allowed me to have this broader perspective.
Yeah.
And coming out of the stores, I didn't understand it and respect it. So when I was in operations for all those years, running a store, running a group of stores, running a region, you only have that narrow lens. And you're in the race, right? It's happening, it's going on, and things are moving very fast.
Yeah.
And so you're very focused on needs of today. but you don't tend to look down the road as much.
Yeah.
And so it's just giving me a chance to step back and really understand the complexity of the car builders and how they do need to be more forward looking, and they do have to think about those things while they take care of the race that's happening right now. So it's just, when I came into this role in the corporate office, it just opened my world up. And I was a very narrow thinking, and today it's just given me a chance to kind of look across the enterprise and understanding all the different parts that makes this overall car run. That's hopefully the best way I'm describing it. It's been a lot of fun. It's just changed the perception. So.
Oh, that's great. Yesterday, I was speaking to a principal at a VC fund, random story, and she was telling me how so many of the leaders within the organizations that they invest in tend to just look at their silo. And how when she comes in as a board member, it's difficult or challenging at first because the data that she's getting is like, oh, sales did so great. We increased by X. But then customer success on the other hand is like, well, a lot of those customers left, and that, the great work that sales did in the grand scheme of things for the whole business isn't really, as something as to celebrate as much. And so I think it's interesting what you're sharing about being able to really see different parts of the business as you worked your way up, so that you have more of a holistic view, which I think is such an important skill for every executive, and also for leaders who aren't yet in that executive position to start looking forward and think, what do the executives or what do the board members want to see and hear, so that we can really be, having an aligned vision of the organization instead of staying in our silos. With so much data that we have at our fingertips, how can we bring all of this disconnected enterprise data into one place and get a 360-degree view of our customer? Well, Salesforce Data Cloud is the answer. With more than 200 implementations globally, the leading Salesforce experts from professional services can help you to realize value quickly. To learn more, visit salesforce.com/products/data. So I was reading through your LinkedIn, and I noticed you had a really, really great line that I wanted to pull out here, that it all boils down to a single idea. When people are empowered, they generally make great choices. And I'd love to hear a little bit of what that outlook means to you.
Well, you hear it all the time. Your people have the answers, right? And our founder really embraced that, and that's something he really drove in all of us. We have this vision, and we have this expectation, and that we're all aligned to what we want to deliver on as an organization. But how we get there, empowering people, because there's different ways, there's different paths. And so when I look at it, it's really, our people have the answers, and when we listen as leaders, you're going to be able to take and help, one, grow them, and two, achieve the mission. And so we're passionate about that. We're passionate about listening to the people out there that drive this organization, because they have the answers, and we got to make sure, we do that as leaders. So it's been drilled into us from the beginning with our founder. So
great. How do you go about listening to your teams?
Well, the best way to do is get on the floor, right? So you can't do it from an office. You can't do it from a video conference call. So we travel. We're always out there talking to the people on the front lines to understand, taking their ideas and sharing those ideas, and then implementing them. So, that's one source of the feedback. We have, obviously technology that we use to kind of solicit feedback, but we're constantly surveying our people relentlessly to hear from them on the challenges we may have, and let them share their ideas so we can determine what's the best path forward. So
it's where the best ideas come from. The people who are actually faced with the problems, right?
they will tell you real quick.
They will tell you. But it's such an important practice to, as you said, get out on the field, spend time with your team. I think it's something a lot of executives struggle with because of time. But how do you find the time to do that?
Well, it goes back to the empowerment, right? So you have leaders, and you have to work through your leadership. And I think that's the best thing. So, me personally speaking, I have, 3 direct leaders that I work with, and they're here to run the shop. And they do the things. It allows me to get out there and see our folks and speak with them, travel with my operations partners because they're a customer. You got a lot of pitches coming at you, right?
Yeah.
You just have to determine what are the right pitches to swing at. And that's the big thing that I look at is to filter out that noise.
Yeah.
You have to. Because you can get overwhelmed real quick, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so you just need to be looking at what are those critical pitches that you need to swing at that's going to be the greatest impact for your people.
Well, that was actually my next question is how do you decide on what to swing at, as you said? Because it can be very noisy when you open up the floodgates of feedback. And I think a lot of leaders also get overwhelmed by all of the feedback or all the ideas or all the insights. And so how do you really choose which ones are the most important?
How well they align to our strategy. And does that make sense? So I think when you start looking at it, there's all these things that are great ideas, things we need to do. No doubt. Are they important? Sure they are. But you do have to make choices, and those choices are aligning to the strategy. Where are we going and why are we going there?
Yeah.
And are these things aligning to that? And if they are, then we need to take a swing at it and look. If they're not, then it's something that we need to come back to and visit. So,
yeah, I love the parking lot. Great idea. We'll address it later. And the hard part is actually going back to that parking lot or acknowledging, why an idea is not going to be pursued with the folks who suggested it. But it's such an important activity. So I'm curious, in the many years that you've been in Discount Tire, I'm sure you've gone through many, many changes in the business, whether it's technological or I saw that you had recently done was it a merger with Tire Rack? So collaborating, bringing other organizations into the organization. When it comes to that change, how do you really ensure that your team gets aligned and that the customer experience isn't impacted?
Acquisitions is new for our organization. We've been around 64 years and it was a big one, but I think it's been pretty easy. And the reason being, I would say that is any company that we like Tire Rack, let's use them. They were a great balance to us. They're a pure e-commerce player, but more importantly, the acquisition is really the merger of the cultures because we are so much alike. Family owned and operated. We're family owned and operated. Those values that they have instilled from the beginning are the same as ours. So really, I look at it, and I don't want to speak for our chairman and everything else, but it's the merger of the two of us and the experience because our values were so closely knitted.
Yeah,
it was just natural. But I would say that we've had others. So like Dunn Tire that we've acquired, smaller 25 chain location in the Northeast. It's a little different, right? And they're a full service shop. So how do we make sure that we align our experiences?
Yeah.
And it's really just embedding, and we actually are doing that. We embed some of our very senior executives to be in that organization, really sharing with them, who we are and what we stand for, why integrity is so important in what we do in our industry. So it's just a relentless effort of driving home that mission. And I think when people hear our mission, it's kind of inspiring in a way because our mission as an organization is to make dreams come true. And so when you hear that, okay, you're a retailer. It seems odd, but our founder was so passionate about making dreams come true for people. So the companies that we have acquired, when they hear that, they get taken back.
Yeah.
And, our mission is to open so many stores a year and everything else. No. Our mission is to make dreams come true. That alone allows this natural integration to happen. It's the best way I can describe it. And they align to something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what's so fun about it. It's how do we continue to do that? So I don't know if I'm rambling here, but
no, I love this.
It's a passion of mine because this mission that our founder came up with, that's why I sit here today after 38 years. He believed in that mission, and I get to be a living success of it. And so, all these companies that we've been acquiring, when they hear it, their dreams are coming true because we're opening new doors to grow them and the people around them. So
that's great. How do you make your customers' dreams come true?
Always use empathy.
Yeah.
Right. And the way we look at it is customers, wherever they're at in that stage, we got to make sure that their first consideration is their safety. Mm-hmm. And we take that to heart and to the point where we're not going to let a customer leave unsafe. Mm-hmm. And up to the manager, give the tires away for free. If they can't afford it, they can't do the right, take care of the customer most importantly. And I think there's so many stories out there that have happened where managers do that, and they use that empowerment. I go back to that. Empower our people to do the right things, and they will. There's more good in the world than bad. I do know it can change people's lives based on where they're at, and take what could be a horrible time and make it a great time.
Completely. I mean, I think when it comes to your tires, there's a lot of fears that I'm sure people have about their car not working or getting into an accident or things like this. And the opposite of that is that those fears don't have to exist, and you can actually just live your life and drive your car and go on that road trip and take your kids to school safely.
Yeah, I'll share this story with you real quick. So our founder, back in the 80s, we just made a decision that, hey, you know what? We're going to fix tires for free for everybody, regardless.
Yeah.
Whether they bought them from us or not, just fix them free. And I'll never forget that, because everybody's like going, okay, most people are charging up to $20 to $30 to do a flat repair, right?
Yeah.
We do 6 to 7 million flats a year free. So you can do the math.
Wow.
And whether you bought them from us or not, right?
Yeah.
And the thought was, when someone has a flat tire, you're having a bad day. No one planned for it. You're either late to getting the kids to school, or you're late to work, or something is going on. And then instead of making someone's bad day even harder, why don't we make it a little brighter? And how can we do a little gesture of a good deed? And I think what's fun about that then spurred to other bigger things to kind of continue to do. So that's really the passion about who we are, is making safety the first consideration. And don't take someone's tough times and make them harder. How do we make them better?
Completely.
And I think that ties a little bit into you making dreams come true. I don't know if it's dreams, but it's definitely making sure that we use empathy at the core of everything that we do. So.
That's great. And I think it's so important that businesses are willing to give first, not only make revenue, right? Like, you're really thinking about the human experience and what it is that you're offering. Getting a flat sucks. It's like, no matter what, the people who are coming in are probably really stressed out. They're annoyed or frustrated or just dealing with a lot. And if you can make that experience just a little bit better by comping them the actual work, then great. So I really see that.
And the other side of it, how it makes our people feel.
Yeah.
I mean, they feel great giving a gift to a consumer and surprising them, right? It's a lot of joy, and I can speak firsthand doing that. The first time I get to look at the consumer and saying, they're like, how much is this going to be? It's like, well, can you just have a better day? And I'm sorry this happened to you. Yeah. And the customers leave there, and I feel great because they just got a gift in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's fun, and it's really fun to see how much our people, you take that pressure off them too. And
completely.
Who doesn't want to be Santa Claus every now and then?
Completely. And going back to that empowerment piece with employees, I think it's something I've built and led multiple customer service and customer success teams. And for the folks who are facing the client, it can be a really, really tough job. And if they have to jump through hoops in order to do that job, if they have to go and get approvals to spend or to give away $20, then that's just making their already hard job harder. So how can we remove those barriers? And I'm really hearing in what you're sharing many examples of you doing that. And it sounds like a great place to work. I mean, good enough that you decided to stick around for 38 years, clearly, but that's awesome. And it also sounds like there's very strong values within Discount Tire. And so I wanted to come back to the conversation around the acquisitions. It sounds like as you've been incorporating those different cultures into your culture, you really have a strong sense of value that you're using as you bring those companies in to really create that consistency in your organization. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, there's these 5 life lessons that we really, we live by. Our founder instilled in all of us. And, the first one is be honest, right? So be honest, work hard, have fun, be grateful, and pay it forward. These are what we really instill in every, whether it's an acquisition or not. And how do you not line up to those? Those are good life lessons. That's really our key pillars. And whenever something's going on, we apply that, right? We always start with who we are and how is it what we're doing aligning to these values that we care so much about.
Yeah.
So.
Completely. That's great. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about technology. We've covered a lot of the human stuff. I want to talk about how you actually run the operation in making sure that you're able to live up to the efficiency that you promise your clients. Because from my understanding, you have a 20-minute service turnaround time. Is that true?
It takes about 20 minutes to service a vehicle. Our total wait time is a little longer than that in the typical store, but to actually service the vehicle itself, our average service time for the vehicle is going to be in that 20-minute mark, a little bit more. So, yeah.
And so how do you structure that? Like, how do you organize your teams and what tools do you use to really make sure that you're able to keep things moving and get those cars out on time?
We have what we call PSE. It's one of our 3 core fundamentals, and it's perfect service experience. So really we've been able to achieve this through really, very specific layouts of our equipment and very specific tasks by a person to kind of execute towards. So it would be more of the tools that they're using as the equipment. I don't know that technology is the big piece of this part.
Okay.
But it really is going to be the layout of the store, the layout of the equipment, and the very clear roles and responsibilities within the team that we've incorporated within the organization that allows us to have this consistent execution of servicing those vehicles. So that's allowed us to do it. Now, what I can say, we are trying new concepts out there. We've built a new store that we call Pit Pass. It's a store with no inventory. It's a buy online, pick up in store product or experience that we're delivering. And that does have some technology that we've deployed to kind of drive efficiencies and transparency for consumers. The drive over tread scanners, where you can drive over, reads the tire treads, serving that up to the consumer.
Wow.
Those type of things have allowed us to kind of change that experience for consumers to where you're arriving at the store in time for your product and you're in that. It's a planned visit, the best way I can describe it. So most consumers that walk into a store, hey, I need a set of tires. You're going to wait in line. You're going to talk to an associate. You're going to go out and assess your needs, go back up front. Then you're going to sit in queue for your car to be serviced, and you're out of there. That's an end-to-end experience. It's a little longer than that. But what we've been doing right now with the adoption of web, online e-commerce, that's growing in our space. We're always a little behind though, because buying tires is a little different than buying shoes. So, but we know that we can change the wait experience for consumers end to end using technology. We use a product that we call Treadle that we've built. It's proprietary to us. That gives you recommendations based on real world data to take the mystery out of buying tires and attack what we call these emotional targets. So consumers, when they go to buy tires, they've got these, they don't feel empowered. Treadle helps empower them. They don't have peace of mind because they don't buy tires that often. It only happens every couple of years. So it's a little different for them. So we looked at how do we really deliver that experience online, bringing the in-store experience to the online experience, how our associates, when they build that relationship with you. So we've been building this experience out there by getting more consumers to transact online. That way, when you arrive, that planned visit, you truly are at the store 20 minutes, end to end.
Wow.
Versus, double that.
Yeah. So you're taking some of that work that the consumer has to put in and you're making it easier for them online, and then they can just come in, show up, get it done, and walk out with their tires fixed.
That's right. That whole end-to-end changes. You go from, call it 45 minutes to an hour down to 20 minutes because you've have that same recommendation online as you would in the store.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope to make it much more intuitive for them.
Wow. So. Well, I need to get new tires and I've been dreading the process. So I'm so happy to know about this. I'm definitely going to Discount Tire to get that done. How did you, tell me a little bit about the process of innovation to come up with Pit Pass and really like build out the different features of that experience that really address the customer needs?
Well, we just started looking at the consumer journey as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And started envisioning on where we want to go based on customer feedback.
Yeah.
And so, our biggest pain point in the industry and organization is the wait times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. Then we also did a lot of research on what that buying experience is like. Mm-hmm. And that's when they came back with images of the tire experience. And it was hard to watch and look at. Consumers saying, tell me about it. And one of the pictures was of a sumo wrestler standing in front of a little small person because they feel outmatched.
Wow.
And that's how they felt in the experience. Another image they shared was, an individual, it looked like Tony Soprano, because the view of the industry it's a mystery, right? And they feel like everybody's out to get them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had all these images that then came up with these emotional targets I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
So when we looked at that and we started stepping back saying, okay, how do we attack these emotional targets? And how do we deliver an end-to-end experience through this journey? And we started looking at our store layouts. We started looking about the product delivery, and then we started looking at the digital adoption, and just started looking at all of it and mapping these journeys out. And we took a swing at doing something different, which was new for us. And we built a whole new concept store and are iterating off of that. So when we look at innovation, it really starts with that consumer research. What's going on, and what are those pain points? And how do we innovate around that? Yeah. And that's kind of that rinse and repeat that we do.
Mm-hmm, completely. And especially the perception of the industry, I think is such an important thing to think about, because consumers will tend to just bucket all, for example, in this case, like all tire shops is the same thing, when in the reality it's not. I used to work in real estate, and we had to face this with the perception of the real estate agent. People just kind of say, oh, they're all bad, when in reality there's many fabulous and amazing real estate agents out there to help you get that done. And so it's important to really think about not only what's their perception of us, but also the perception of this whole space and how can we be different in it. Salesforce Data Cloud is a hyperscale data platform built right into Salesforce. Data Cloud helps to better know your customers, act on AI in the flow of work, and enrich your data with open access. To learn more, visit salesforce.com/products/data. And so when you were doing all these customer journey maps, really understanding what those pain points are, and then you created a concept store to test it. What have you found to work? And then on the flip side, has there been anything that you tried that didn't work that you're taking out of the experience?
We tried a lot of different things. I mean, at the store, we tried to kind of we too looked at the self-help at the store. You've seen grocery stores and stuff like that. That didn't work. Yeah. That didn't work. Part of it's the product we sell. It's complex. It's fitments are very challenging. So that didn't work. But what has worked, which has been an overwhelming success, our NPS score at the store has been holding at 97 for over a year and a half.
Yeah.
And what we've learned, it's really telling. And what we've learned is consumers don't even have to get out of their car. So if you've made that purchase, you drive up to the store, we greet you at the canopy, we validate the purchase, you pull forward, you don't even have to get out of your car. Car goes in the air, we service the car, goes down, and you leave. What we have seen right now, that's been just a grand slam. I mean, it's just been fantastic from that aspect. The consumers are loving it. The big thing is because their end-to-end wait time has been average of 18 minutes at the store.
Yeah.
So you that planned visit, showing up, not having to get out of the car, get in, get out, it's allowing our people to plan for a better day, our customers to be able to plan their days better, and we're delivering something that's been truly unique. I mean, it's been exciting. So that's worked really well. And we didn't know, because we're still fighting the drive-up consumer, right? They see our stores, Pit Pass by Discount Tire. They think of Discount Tire, the traditional stores. And where you can pull up, we've got 3,000 units in the back room. We've got a lot of choices on hand that we can sell you that day. This store has nothing on hand. And so if you do drive up, we make sure we sell you the right tire. And I think that's important right now. So I go back to emotional targets. So there's a difference between selling what you have in stock and selling what truly is best for you. Right? And so that's been the fun part, is being able to build that trust with the customer. And ensuring that, hey, we're going to make sure you have the tire that meets your needs, not our needs. So being that consumer advocate. And we were a little worried about those drive-up consumers. Would they come back the next day to put them on? And the answer is yes. Because, most consumers, hey, I planned my day. I'm going to come in and get a set of tires. Oh, hey, welcome to Pit Pass by Discount Tire. By the way, we have no tires in inventory. What? Right? And so, however, we've got them. They're going to be picked, packed, and shipped overnight. If you come back here tomorrow and can give us 20 minutes of your time, we're going to get you in and out. That experience is really working and growing fast.
Great. And you're also getting them exactly what they need.
That's right. And that's the big change. And the customers can feel it. They can see that we're not just trying to sell them the best tire that's on our shelf in the back room. We're trying to sell you a tire that's truly right for you.
Completely. I want to come back to what you found didn't work, which was the self-service. Because it's really interesting. I see so many companies doing this, and it is great in some scenarios, and then it also is adding more effort and time to the customer in other scenarios. And I think we have to be so conscious of that, because as you're saying, people love the fact that they can get in and out in 18 minutes. Time is our most valuable resource, and you're really honoring that with the current setup that you have. But what do you think wasn't working about the self-service kiosks?
The big pain point is the consumers, well, I will say time, right? The time, the process, just the process itself wasn't as intuitive. As hard as we kept trying, it was just challenging. And because of the nature of the product we sell, fitment's so key. And so you got to have year, make, model, and most importantly, trim. And trim is really going to determine the right application for the tire. So most consumers don't know their trim. And it's a very big pain point. So then they'd have to get out of their car. They got to kind of try to figure it out. So it was just this little clunky process that just wasn't intuitive enough that was going to allow them to kind of self-serve themselves and feel comfortable about, I selected the right tire for my needs. It just didn't work. Completely. They needed to talk to an associate. Again, we surveyed our consumers. What's the number one reason that you don't purchase online, or you don't hit that, in cart? And they want to talk to somebody to just make sure they've made the right choice. And that just wasn't working, the self-serve.
Completely.
That's what we do.
How do you solve that online?
Well, we have done things enabled where keying in your license plate, we can then get down to the VIN of the vehicle because it's associated to get to the right setup for your vehicle. That's one thing that consumers are starting to do there. We've done a lot of education as you go through the process, whether through video or other things, to let them know how to make sure they're picking the right trim for their vehicle, and educating them that way. So there's all these different steps that we're trying to get done there for them.
Awesome. Are you using AI at all? I have to ask this question because everybody's talking about it.
Everybody's talking about it. We are not. We are not using AI. In the consumer experience in that aspect. There is a piece of AI that we are utilizing within our Treadwell product and how we interact with consumers and make recommendations based on real world testing and real world results. So.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I think my take on the AI topic of just as I speak to so many people about this is the technology is not quite there to solve all of our problems. And it's important to have our minds open to where can we use AI to solve problems, which it sounds like you found a use case, but it's not necessarily, for example, going to help someone choose the right tire because it really requires that expertise that we may not be able to trust AI quite enough yet to do that. So makes a lot of sense. Another feature that I heard you've implemented is a digital queue system so that people can see where they're at in line. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it's impacted the customer experience?
Yeah, we call it the journey tracker, and it's just simply giving our consumers a better visibility into when to arrive to the store for their time to be serviced. So go back to, we only need your car for this finite amount of time. And so by giving consumers the ability to get in queue and then see a window of arrival based on the cars that are already ahead of them, allows them not to have to sit around the store all day. They can arrive to that store in this window and really shorten that experience at the store, which go back to time, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hang around a tire store. I call it hurtful, but we understand. We want to hang out with them, but it's really changed. I go back to the end to end. It's allowing customers to have more flexibility and be at the store when we need to, for the service time versus waiting for their car in queue, waiting at the store for calling an hour or so, waiting for your name to be called.
Completely.
Now you can kind of pull up. We greet you. Hey, Lauren, how you doing? You're arriving in that window of time. We get you in and out, and away you go. So.
This sounds magical. And I love the concept of being able to kind of track where you are in line. I think it's in many ways like an Uber effect, where we've gotten so used to being able to see, okay, how far is my ride away from picking me up? Or with, Postmates or Seamless, we can see, okay, where is my order? How far away is it? I can kind of see how it's going. We want that control to be able to see exactly when things are happening and not be caught off guard or, get somewhere and then end up having to wait. We want to be able to see the full experience. And I think that's a really smart feature to implement for those reasons. So it sounds like you've been making a lot of investments in improving the service and the customer experience overall. And I'm curious to understand, how have you been managing the balance between investment and managing pricing and supply chain and all these other aspects of the business? Has there been anything in particular any strategies in particular that you've implemented to really manage that balance of investment as well as costs?
Well, I mean, we have 3 strategy buckets that we look at and focus on, and it's the balance between them. I mean, we call the one the fundamentals. That's our COO driving that, and then the second one is the customer experience. It's the strategy bucket I own that we look at, and we look at 3 things within it. How do we create that digital trust, and how do we create time transparency? And how do we create more predictive and personalization, right? Big buzzwords, you hear it all the time. And then we have a chief revenue officer that's overseeing our mergers and acquisitions. So when we look at this in totality, we're balancing it through, again, I go back to our strategy and all these things. How do we make sure that the things that we're investing are driving towards that strategy? But it's a balance between those 3 that we negotiate of what's going to get us there long term. We're always looking at this 2030 vision right now of where we want to be. So we're kind of backing into that, knowing that, hey, these are the big things we want to have done by 2030. We know that there are steps to get there. And you got to kind of balance between the fundamentals of running your business today. It goes back to the drivers. And we know that's priority number 1, because that's what's driving, the tools that we need to invest in the future. And so we balance it heavily in that bucket. I can tell you that right now. So we call it, don't play with the mothership, right? And the mothership is that revenue that's driving these drivers are doing right now. The 2 other buckets that we have are the investments more longer term, that we sit down and start aligning with our COO and our CRO saying, okay, we got X amount of our budget dedicated to this fundamental bucket. The rest of it, we're going to start doing piecemeal here as we work towards long things. So 3 buckets we look at. Don't play with the mothership. That gets the big part of it. And then we rest into the future.
Yeah. So. I love that. Don't play with the mothership.
Yeah.
Are there any specific tools that you implement within Discount Tire to really help you and your team provide a great customer experience?
Yeah, we do something we call the Discount Tire Management System, right? And it's something that we have here. We look at what we call the puzzle pieces, and that is how we guide ourselves. I mean, it really is throughout the organization and all that we do. And we kind of fall back to this and use it as our guideline. So
great. So I have 3 last questions for you. Firstly, how do you evaluate success, and how often are you making changes to your strategy?
I would say if our people's dreams are coming true. I mean, that's the number one thing. It's our pillar. So, you know, we call profits tools. Those are the tools that we get to invest to make dreams come true. Part of it is building more stores, because that's the dream. You know, we got 29,000 associates out there, and every time we build a new store and we get to give keys to an individual, we've built another dream. And so that's a big part of what we look at is, are we building dreams? And those dreams are sometimes changes for everybody, but out there and there is they get keys to that store, and they are, you know, they're the manager, they're running this business, they're driving it, they're empowered to drive it. And, you know, there's a book out there called 6 Tires, No Plan. And it's about our founder, and our managers are compensated really well. And I think if you read the book, you'll see. And that empowerment makes dreams come true. So a big measurement for us is, are we building more stores to build more dreams for our people? Are we generating the profits tools to get that done? And if we are, then we're doing our mission.
Great. It's very inspiring. I love it. So I have 2 more questions for you that we ask all of our guests. The first is, we'd love to hear about a recent experience that you've had with a brand or a company that left you impressed. What was that experience, and why were you impressed?
All right. Home Depot. I mean, it was a holiday weekend. They tend to get busy, and it was the whole end-to-end experience and how seamless it was for me. I mean, honestly, it's from the purchasing online to getting the message the product was pulled, to the arrival, it was there. It was to the easiness with the associate. There was a mound of people there. They had mobile devices in their hands to kind of start meeting people and do things to try to drive what you go back to time. I didn't want to walk around the store and spend there. So I know it's kind of maybe small, but it was like, hey, on a holiday weekend when you got things going on, it was like this great experience. I was like, this is fantastic. I want them all like this.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Thank you. And then my last question for you is, what is one piece of advice that you think every customer experience leader should hear?
Whatever you do and whatever experience that you're designing or creating or going after, start with empathy. Empathy is at the core. And when you do that, you're going to find a better outcome most of the time.
I love that answer so much. It is so, so important for us to empathize with our people and our customers. That's the only way that we can really understand what it is that they're facing and what problems they're struggling with, so that we can actually work together to move through them. So thank you for that. That is very sage advice and something everybody should take to heart. So thank you so, so much, Tom, for coming on the show. It's been wonderful to have you.